Hi there, I'm Ice here, and this is going to be a pacifist review of the quest mod Rigmor of Bruma for Skyrim Special Edition. This mod is more popular than Moon and Star that I've reviewed before, at least in terms of downloads and endorsements on the Skyrim Nexus. It is also a much bigger and longer than Moon and Star. This mod, I'd say, falls into a kind of Elder Scrolls mod tradition of the epic quest and companion mods with a romance option. It really is. Not only is it epic in length in itself, there is actually also a sequel to it, another mod called Rigmor of Cyrodiil, which I admit right away I haven't played. It is definitely a good mod. It's clear, easy to see that it took massive amounts of hard work and indeed team effort to make with this mod, because for one thing, there are many NPCs here with very good voice acting indeed. Despite this is a mod that I cannot recommend for strictly pacifist characters. As for pacifist potential, I'm gonna stretch myself as far as to give it maybe a 4 out of 10. It certainly starts out very well. Several times at the start you run into some thugs who you can either fight or just, buy off or intimidate or somehow bypass to get to your quest goal. And when you do get to that goal, they turn out not to be bad guys at all, at least if you read the book that's there. But pretty quickly you get into sort of the main conflict of the mod, which is between your companion Rigmor and her allies versus the Thalmor. There's a lot of bad blood there, and the quests soon start requiring you to kill certain enemies, and indeed lead you on to taking part into basically a whole war against the Thalmor, or at least one branch of the Thalmor. On the plus side, the mod does sort of portray violence and war as not fun, as something that can indeed be very traumatic. Your companion is certainly very brave, but at the same time sometimes admits to being very scared. She doesn't want to fight, really, although the mod does comment on how she sometimes will just rush into battle. That's sort of how she's learnt to fight, I guess. I'm not going to hold that against the mod. Also, the mod certainly never claimed that he tried to make a pacifist-friendly mod in any way. What is clear, that he did try to make a more realistic mod. The question is, well, that's maybe slightly over-ambitious. Making realistic fantasy? There's even a contradiction in terms there. Fantasy, realism, that's hard to do, and Tamriel is not Westeros. Maybe I've got a bit of a pet peeve with pacifism, where, is violence really that necessary in a world where magic can, at least temporarily, stop even mortal enemies from attacking? But even if you look away from that, it is very hard to write, believable, traumatized characters. Especially children, who also, at least one child with issues shows up later on in the mod. Rigmor herself is not a child, but she is young, and she's definitely intended as a more realistic human being, I think, with, real vulnerability. She's a teenager. She throws tantrums at times and acts annoying, and this is perfectly understandable because she's been through a lot, and that certainly makes the mod rather dark, and I can certainly see how it can make Rigmor itself even more endearing because of it. When I've said before that the mod is linear, I mean that's a good thing in this case, because it's so epic, it's so long. There's more chance to get to know the character. There's more chance to characterize the character and develop the relationship between the player and the companion. It's just, for me, it doesn't always work. I think probably because making Rigmor messed up enough to be truly believable would have probably made her just too annoying. And the problem is a little bit compounded because several times in dialogue your character is sort of forced to declare her love for Rigmor. Admittedly, you do get to define whether that love is of a romantic sort, or more platonic, or even more paternal or maternal. And of course, your character can say particular lines of dialogue without meaning them at all, but there's no option to, for example, be in it basically for the 15,000 septims that you're promised at the start, and then, well, deal's a deal, I stick with my word. Now, I realise it is probably unfair to compare this mod to a mod for Morrowind that I've Let's Played on my channel, the Underground 2, because it just takes so much more effort to mod Skyrim, where you need, voice acting for everything and so on. But the problem is, I just can't help myself from comparing when I play the mod. And the Underground 2 companion character works there precisely because she's a vampire. She's, inherently unrealistic. Rather the opposite of Rigmor, really. She is, nearly invulnerable and on a bit of a different moral plane from, shall we say, normal mortal humans. She's not that bothered by moral issues of violence and so on, and the whole mod is therefore a lot more light-hearted at times, though certainly it can be dark at times as well. So what I'm saying is, I think Rigmor of Bruma could use a little bit more comic relief, to be honest. It certainly gives a little bit of that at times. I'm not going to spoil things, but there's a hilarious moment when she gets into Imperial light armor, by the way. But it gets a little bit too dark and not always 100% believable for me, anyway. I ended up deciding that my character was just a bit more smitten with Rigmor than certainly she expected to be. And if you're looking for a long, epic adventure with a really interesting companion character, look no further. The thing I like about this sort of quest mod in an Elder Scrolls, or indeed typical Bethesda open world game, is precisely that, yeah, you have got this long quest chain, but at the same time you can take breaks, you can do side quests and stuff, bring your character to do other stuff, and there are some really nice notes in the quests notes, the journal notes I mean, that will help you avoid conflicts. It'll tell you that now is really good time to do side quests in Riften, for example. And even though it's mostly linear, at the very end there is actually an important sort of personal choice to make. So overall, this is definitely a very good mod. If you've never played those quest mods for Morrowind that I'm talking about, you may possibly enjoy it even more than I did. Overall, I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10 for a quest mod. Certainly one of the biggest, most ambitious ones I've seen, and I'd definitely recommend trying this out if you have a non-pacifist character, especially one who has some kind of gripe with the Thalmor.